As you find a seat this morning, I want to say good morning and welcome to you. If you're here with us in person, good morning and welcome. If you're here online with us, good morning and welcome. And if you are new here, and by new here I mean whatever definition you would kind of attribute to new here, like you're just kind of checking things out in person for the first time, or you're just checking things out online for the first time, I want to just point you to a resource that could be a good connective tissue for you. There's a QR code in the seat in front of you, or you can go to foundrybaltimore.com/connect, and there you'll find a digital connection card that will help you kind of take next steps to connect with community. That's what we want to be here as a church, a group that's connecting to but is also connected to one another and to our city. And that connection card will help you take those initial next steps. Today, in our time together, you can kind of see from the stage setup, we're going to be a little bit less conventional than normal. We're going to talk about rebuilding through the sense of maybe the Foundry story, but also what God is doing in your story and through the book of Nehemiah. But to do that, we're going to play a kind of a quick game, okay? And this is one you can play at home from the comfort of your couch, as well as in this room. Katie kind of referenced just the collective, okay, it's hard for it. We're all trying to read each other through like half of our face, right? And that's a little bit weird. It's worth doing wisely and well. But today, what I want to do as we think about this idea of rebuild is give you a chance to participate and engage with us, right? We're experimenting with new ways to do that. So quick game. All you need here is your thumbs up, thumbs down, okay? And so I'm going to give you a statement, and if that statement you think is a true statement as we think about rebuilding, go ahead and give me a thumbs up. If you think that's a false statement, go ahead and give me a thumbs down. You can do it in the comments online as well. If you don't want to play, no other fingers required, please. Just kind of keep it to just kind of sitting there and taking this in for a minute, okay? Very easy. We'll figure this out together, okay? Here's the first one, true or false? Between 2012 and 2016, the Baltimore Orioles won more regular season baseball games than any other team in Major League Baseball. All right? Between 2012 and 2016, the Baltimore Orioles won more regular season games than any other team in Major League Baseball. And I see a thumbs up, and my thumbs up friend, you are correct. Between 2012 and 2016, the Baltimore Orioles actually won more games than any other team in Major League Baseball, regular season games, okay? So we didn't get a World Series, but so that's good. It's good for us to remember in the throes of this rebuild, right? I'm feeling that. All right, here's you go. Question number 2. In 1814, the President's House, now called the White House, burned down at the hands of British forces during the War of 1812. True or false? Here's the question. That was a true statement. Here's the question. True or false question. True or false, as Dolly Madison, the First Lady, was trying to escape, she made sure to grab the original copy of the Declaration of Independence. Thumbs up if that's true, thumbs down if that's false. Dolly Madison escaped with the original copy of the Declaration of Independence. That is false. She actually escaped with the portrait of George Washington, and if you don't know where the original copy of the Declaration of Independence is, Nicolas Cage has got that. All right, next one, last one. Okay, according to Popular Mechanics, which is the magazine, right? To rebuild an engine as an ASE certified mechanic should take about 5 hours. Take about 5 hours. According to Popular Mechanics, to rebuild an engine as an ASE certified mechanic should take about 5 hours. Thumbs up if you think that's true. Thumbs down if you think that's false. Everyone's turned into their car friend here. It is false. It is markedly longer than that, even for someone who is trained in the art of engine rebuilds. So today, if you don't get it by now, we're talking about the idea of rebuilding. And what we're going to do today to help us kind of usher that in, we're going to think about this on 2 levels. We're going to think about this on the level of your life, your story, the rebuild of relationships, but also what it means for us as a church to be sort of rebuilding and relaunching a sense of mission as we transition from a summer season. And I don't want to disappoint you, but fall's coming. Fall's coming. And what does that mean for us as a community? So I've invited some friends onto this stage, and this is the Foundry staff team, if you did not know that. And so if you're new to our community, this is maybe a good way for us to say, like, who's on staff here at the Foundry? The answer is look to your left and look to your right. So really quickly, could we go down the line? This is probably, and I mean like just really, really fast. Would you just introduce yourself and maybe talk about how long you've been in your particular role, right? Go ahead.
Yeah, so I am Austin Hedge. I have been a part of the Foundry since before we launched in 2013. I came here about 7 months before we launched as a one-year intern, and then about 2 years after that, I was hired as the associate pastor.
Austin?
Hi, I'm Katie Hubbard, and I am the worship director here at the Foundry. I have been a part of the worship team for several years now, and I started as the director of worship in January of 2021.
Yeah. All right. We'll turn to the left here. We'll start on the end. We'll work it.
All right. My name is Lindsay, and I am the operations pastor here at the Foundry. I, like Austin, started before we launched. It'll be 8 years. I've been here for 8 years. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, I'm Chelsea. I'm the children's director here, and I have served for the last few years on the kids team. And yeah, it'll be a year in September that I've been the children's director.
Yep. Cool. So there's the team. Now you know us. And so I wanted to ask our team here kind of two questions this morning to kind of get us thinking about this idea of rebuilding, particularly as it relates to some of the things God has done over the course of the past 18 months. I don't know if you realize this, but it's been really hard to function and be on mission together over the course of this past season. And this particular team represents a larger group of individuals who have been serving and been on mission and done some really incredible things. And so I think it's good for us first to maybe just stop and celebrate a little bit of what some of those things have looked like. So I'm going to start on my right. And I want to invite you, Austin, if you would kind of kick us off. What have been some of the things that you just have to celebrate from your vantage point and from your seat?
Yeah, so one of the parts of my job is to oversee the production here at the Foundry. And so a year ago, obviously, that completely changed. And we had begun to do a little bit of live streaming before that, but it was pretty much just for like the band to use or for us to get a sense of what it would look like and some training. And so when COVID hit last year, we basically said, hey, well, we are going full-fledged on this and we are adapting everything we're doing. We pared down who was helping us to really a team of about 3 or 4 people, Jake Hubbard and Eric Hunsicker in particular, who actually are in the back of the room right now, helped us every single week put on what we did each week here at the Foundry. So something to celebrate is frankly that we were able to make that turn and that transition, and that we did it well, in my opinion, and I'm hoping your opinion as well, that there are many new faces that got to know who Jesus was because of what we did over the last year, even though we weren't able to be in this room.
Yeah, that was amazing. Yeah, this group of people coming to us in January 2021 with 2020 with a sense of urgency. And wow, definitely a God thing. Katie, what from your vantage point, what would you say here? The wins of your team and what that's looked like?
So the wins for me, and it sounds a little contradictory, but it was being together this last year. And I think for the worship team's mind is to gather people together around Jesus. It's a lot of times it's musical, but it's not just musical. So for this past year and a half, 18 months, whatever it is now, to gather together took like extra weird, sometimes awkward steps to do, but all those steps were worthwhile. And to see people week after week in the comment section taking that like extra little step to like someone's comment or post under it, or somebody would post a prayer request and people would like follow up with them later. We'd see people reading verses on the screen, and then the comment section would light up because you saw a face you hadn't seen in a while. Just all of the connection that we actually were able to make happen through other means. And then when we eventually started meeting, outdoors and then in this room, all of that stuff we were taking extra time and steps to do. It was just all flooding, all that verbal and nonverbal communication that happens was just like hitting us like a ton of bricks. And it's just, I'm celebrating that you guys made that happen.
Yeah, that's really cool. turn over here. Lindsay, what would you say? What's been your seat?
Yeah, I oversee several different areas in my work, but two in particular have been ones that have really just encouraged me over the last year, and those are students and outreach. I don't know about you guys, but going through middle school and high school was pressure enough. To add a pandemic on top of that is a little insane. I can't imagine, what our kids have gone through in this last year. But our students are really amazing here at the Foundry. So one of the things that we said was these kids are isolated from their friends, from their classmates. How do we provide them a safe space where they can actually be together with other students and learn about Jesus? And we were able to do that. We were able to create a space where our students have been in person for the whole last year doing student ministry here at the Foundry. Again, we did it in a way that was safe. They had lots of extra space. We marked out where chairs could be. But we were able to create that for them. At the end of our year, every year, I do like a little survey with our students just to see like what landed with them, what didn't, and ask lots of questions, had them write on a piece of paper. But one of the questions I asked was, what did God teach you in this last year? And overwhelmingly on this paper, over and over, our kids wrote some version of, I know that God is with me when things are hard. So for our students to learn that in this last year is really pretty incredible. So I hope that through this pandemic, that's something that they can take the rest of their life, is knowing God is with me when things are hard, and church is a safe place where I can be and experience that.
Yeah. What did you say about outreach?
Yeah, and then with outreach, we had lots of different ways that we saw outreach happen. If you've been around to the Foundry, you know that our tagline, our slogan is we're a church for the city. And that hasn't stopped since the pandemic happened. We have, if you don't know, we have a breakfast ministry that happens here every Sunday morning. That breakfast ministry has not missed a Sunday. They feed unhoused people and just food insecure people, or really anyone who is hungry in our city. They moved it from being an indoor event to now it's a curbside grab and go thing. But they're able to feed and serve and just be good friends and neighbors to people who are in need every week. We also have seen just pivots and innovations happen in how we serve. We have our Feed More, Be More event coming up that instead of it being one big event, we're now doing 4 mini events. And the Christmas store was another big one, to where a lot of different organizations like Your Toys for Tots and Angel Trees were having to cancel events because they were like, we just don't know how to do this in a pandemic. And I remember going to the University of Maryland, and they came to me and said, like, we want to make Christmas store happen. How do we make this happen? And we just went back and forth of, what if we did this? What if we did this? And together we were able to say, what if we did it outside? What if we did it under a tent? And we were still able to host our Christmas store event last year, in a year where parents were even more in need for toys and for just dignity and joy for their families. But we're able to pull that off when a lot of organizations couldn't. So us being a church for a city hasn't stopped. We still love our city, and we love our neighbors.
Yeah.
And that's been awesome.
Yeah, Chelsea, what about from your seat, from Foundry kids, young people? That's obviously a group that's been very impacted. So
I work with 0 babies to 5th graders, and I feel like I have the luxury, there were so many wins, because when you work with kids, they find joy and meaning in like the very simple things of life. So finding wins for me, it was not hard, but I narrowed it down to 3. The first one was our curriculum bags. Basically, we took our curriculum from Sunday and put it into easy to use lesson plans and materials, all organized in a bag, ready to go for our families. Nakia was a huge part in that, and she had the idea of just making bags for all of our families and delivering them straight to their door, so they did not have to come out during the pandemic and pick them up at church. And we had a delivery fleet that came to our church every month to pick up the bags and bring them to our families' homes. The second win was in the winter when Sarah Savage and her son Cooper emailed me and said, why can we do Zoom calls? We miss seeing everybody. We want to interact with people. Can we start doing Zoom calls? So I was so grateful that she not only came with the idea and challenged me to do this, but she also said, hey, I'll lead one of them, which was amazing. So we are able to have a monthly preschool and elementary school Zoom call once a month for our kids to just connect and have fun together and hopefully allow our parents some a little bit more quiet to listen to the sermon. And lastly, we talked about it last week, was Kids for the City. During a week in July, we had 6 kids come to the church building and just serve our little corner of Riverside in really simple but meaningful ways. And if you want to hear more about that, we just did a video about it last week, and it's on our social media.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I mean, I hope that your bucket's a little bit more full than you came in here with. I don't know what you carried with you today. I just hope you feel a little bit of encouragement, because I don't know about you, some of this is maybe not new information for some of you, but I have retained about 10% of the things said to me for the past year and a half, right? And I need that reminder that in my isolation or my scattering, or I work on Austin's team, so I may not know what Lindsay's team or Chelsea's team is doing, that God is still doing stuff in this community, right? And that the pivots are just another challenge, but God's still working. So I hope that you kind of hear just a spirit of celebration here, not self-congratulations, but for the people on this stage, there's a whole wider circle of people. You've heard some of their names, but it's a wide circle of people who have said, hey, I'm willing to let God use my story even in the uncertainty of this moment. So as we celebrate that, I know that we're also coming up on another season. Fall is coming. And we want to take some time today to say, hey, what is coming up in this next season for you? So Austin, Katie, Chelsea, Lindsay, if you were to think about this season between Labor Day and Christmas Eve, there's probably 300 things we all want to do. But in the areas that kind of represent your team, your corner, the things you see, would you highlight maybe what's next for your team? Austin, I'm going to start back over with you.
Yeah, so I think that one of the biggest things that's next for my team, and something that we've been obviously working on the last month or two, is just figuring out what it looks like in this new hybrid reality. How do we have people in the room while also serving, today we're serving families downstairs with our online stream, and serving people who are not here in this room, and continuing to encourage them and challenge them to be on mission with us from wherever they join us. And so we are continuing to figure out what that looks like. We're continuing to build our team, because to do something in room and online, and to do it at a high quality, requires a lot more people than pre-COVID, when we had a much more pared down team. We had a smaller team doing things because we just mostly were worried about in room that day. So that's the main thing, is we're trying to figure out what that looks like, because we see there's a huge opportunity not to neglect the in room, but also with the online presence as well. When the Foundry was started in 2013, one of the reasons why Scott was drawn to Baltimore, and Orchard Group are one of the organizations we partnered with to plant here, wanted to be here, is because of just the opportunity to reach people, to reach the nations, to reach beyond our city, because Baltimore is a place that is influential, and being online provides that tenfold. It provides the opportunity for people who are having to step away for a short season from us, because there's one person right now in our church who is stepping away to care for her mother, and she's able to join us each week online, and normally she wouldn't be able to. Or if it's someone who is coming for the first time, and they want to just figure out who we are before they step into the room, they have the opportunity to do that. Or if there's someone who lives somewhere else, and this is an opportunity for them to connect to our church, whether they've been a part of our church and they've moved away, or they just found us online, or they have friends that have connected them. There's such opportunity to do church online, while also not neglecting what's happening here in the room.
Yeah. So this online thing is not this crazy novelty that'll pass away, right?
Yeah, and there's
really
more opportunities that we can dive into,
Yeah.
even that we haven't even begun to test the waters of.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, Katie, how about you?
So as Austin has his eye on our online gathering, and I've kind of turned my attention to the various ways that we gather in person and worship together. I've kind of realized, as I look ahead, I looked back a little bit to be like, the one of the gifts that the pandemic gave us was we couldn't operate on autopilot at all. Like, all of our routines were disrupted, but that disruption, as painful as it was, allowed us to examine our routines. And I think a big question that people have even in this room is why church, and by that meaning, why do we gather this way? Why, is this still important? Do I still need this? And so as I'm looking at over these next few months, I'm like really examining that question for myself and for our community of being like, what makes this important and necessary for us to gather both online and in person? And, I can't answer that question for anyone except myself, but I can say this: the science is in that we need each other. The psychological benefits of doing life in a community are too numerous to count. And that's any community. It can be in a gamer community online. It can be a mom's group on Facebook. It can be your coworkers at happy hour. So what is different about church? It's doing that community thing centered around Jesus. And all of the action that goes around that, our singing together, our praying together, our talking to each other in the comments, our Zooming with each other, our doing like sharing milestones like new jobs and new houses and marriage and babies and burying our loved ones. As we do all those things, if it's when we come and center that around Jesus, that's church. So my question of the next few months that we've been looking at is like, are we doing that? Is that what we're actually doing when we come together? Are we looking at Jesus? Are we helping each other see Jesus better? And so looking at our processes that are around that and being like, is that it? And then empowering not just us, but empowering you to look at those things and be like, how can I look at Jesus better in this context? How can I help others who are around me shoulder to shoulder to see Jesus better and to follow him?
Yeah. And I love that because it's such a bigger question than how quickly can we get back to March 7th, 2020 normalcy, right? And the romantic nostalgia that we might have there. It's such a bigger question. Lindsay, what about for you? What do you guys see?
Yeah, one of the big things for me is just kind of reclaiming this corner. I oversee our hospitality and frontline team, and being on the corner has been really important to us. We intentionally used to serve coffee outside instead of inside because we wanted to be for our neighborhood and inviting to everyone. So reclaiming this corner, since our doors have been closed, and we want people to know that we're open and that we are a place of hope and a safe place that people can come explore who Jesus is and what it means to be in relationship with him. For our students, I want to see just expanded opportunities for them with both middle school and high school specific ministries that we can, and hopefully we can reach more students here in the neighborhood with those. And then with outreach, we have our first Feed More, Be More event coming up in just a couple weeks at the end of the month. And just seeing that flourish throughout the rest of the year. And then we'll have our Christmas tour event happen again this Christmas as well.
Yeah. And Chelsea, how about you? How about for you?
So for us, we want to be able to provide for our families a way for the kids to learn about Jesus and connect with Jesus in the way that they feel safe doing it right now. So we've been providing virtual programming that they get every Sunday morning. We'll continue to do that, but we're also trying to make space for them here that is more child friendly and welcome them with busy boxes. And we opened up the room downstairs as well, the multi-purpose room with tables for families so they can watch the live stream. And my hope is that this fall we can begin our plans to open up our children's classes again, but we have to make sure that we can do that in a way that's not only serving our families well, but that is safe.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, I want you to hear that the win for us as a church is not just a restoration of what was, but a meeting of what is. And so entering this moment, both with online opportunity and in-person opportunity, what I want you to hear is invitation. An invitation to be part of what God is doing right now. There's a QR code on the screen that really is just intended for you it'll bring up a form that will help you kind of identify and think through strategically which of these spaces maybe resonates with you. Like, hey, I'm in the online space and I'm committed to the online space. I want to make that happen. hey, I'm committed to wanting to further expand in-person learning opportunities or to continue on with virtual learning opportunities for our young people. My guess is that one of these things kind of rings your bell again. And the goal is not, again, so the goal is not just for us to go, hey, let's get back to some good old days. We've won. Wave the mission accomplished banner today. But as we celebrate, also say this next season requires a wider circle of us. And so we hope that what you hear today is a beautiful invitation to be part of what God is doing. That QR code that's on the screen will be a great next step to take. But even today, if you see Lindsay on the way out, if you can't access that code or don't know how to do it, wave her down and she'll help you get connected to that respective thing. I want to close with just going into a time of prayer. I want to pray the prayer that we prayed our first Sunday of scattering in this new season. Kind of pray it into this new season to renew our commitment to do this. And so I'm going to just read it over us this morning. And so if we would enter this moment prayerfully and just kind of make this our prayer as a church as we enter this next season, online, in person, but on mission together. Let's pray. In times of distress, increase, O God, the spirit of neighborliness among us, that in peril we may uphold one another in suffering, tend to one another in homelessness, loneliness, or exile, and befriend one another. Grant us brave and enduring hearts, that we may strengthen one another until the disciplines and testings of these days are ended, and you again give peace in our time, through Jesus Christ, our Lord. Amen. Well, thank you, Foundry team, and thank you to all of those that you represent. We're really grateful for you. So, would you give them a hand to say, and the teams themselves? That's what we're really kind of saying. Just super grateful for that, and again, hope that you're excited about some of the things that you heard today. I want to transition really quickly. And move from this idea of, the Win kind of being a Foundry commercial to the idea of just this idea of what does it mean to rebuild well in your story this fall. I was offline this week and then I jumped back online for just to kind of, reintegrate myself into society. What did I miss? What's my inbox look like? And I saw these memes about the Delta variant that were all very clever 90s references, like there was one, Saved by the Bell reference, My Fall Plans, and then the Delta variant. I put one on my Facebook page today that was from The Office involving Kevin's Chili, if you're familiar with that Office episode. And here's the deal. The language of sarcasm masks something bigger, right? Which is that for all of maybe the optimism that you might feel, there might be collectively an uncertainty that makes us a little bit nervous, that makes us a little bit fearful, that this idea of rebuild, this language is also matched with but what about this? And what about this? And what about this? And that's actually something the scriptures that we've been studying together as a church in the book of Nehemiah points to. The 6th chapter of Nehemiah begins with, at the end of chapter 5, Nehemiah just praying in exasperation. He's exasperated by all of the rebuild efforts he's made. He's exasperated by all the external threats. He's exasperated by all of the internal corruption. But then by the middle of the 6th chapter, the wall's built. We get to this home stretch where the exterior wall of Jerusalem is starting to be built, and now it's just down to the gates. And it's here that there's one last season where this rebuilding vision could be corrupted. And I think this moment has some stuff in it that's applicable to your story and mine today. So as we celebrate what God has done, as we invite you to be part of what God is doing, I'd love us to look inward a little bit at some of the things Nehemiah deals with and to see where they are in our story. Okay? The first thing Nehemiah deals with is this invitation of the distraction of good things. Okay, so Nehemiah actually gets kind of a peace offering, or so it would appear. These two guys who have been external threats invite him to neutral ground, neutral territory, and want to meet. And in a vacuum, it seems like a good thing. Let's make peace, the wall gets built, and then everything will be good when I go back to Susa, when I go back to my old job as the cupbearer. Nehemiah, in verse 3, is able to detect that this is not actually a good thing, that it's a distracting thing, and he says, I'm doing a good work, an important work, and I cannot come down. This persists 4 times. They extend this offer to meet. You can imagine maybe the people in Nehemiah's life going, hey, mate, what if they mean it? And Nehemiah's ability to discern the difference between a good thing and a God thing is one of the things I think I would invite us to consider right now, right? As we consider the idea of rebuilding in our life, one of the things that's real for all of us is probably a plethora of really good opportunities and really good things. And how do we, in our work, in our family, in our church, in our relationships with our neighbors, make decisions that are rooted in some of the things God has exposed to us about us in this past year, right? Some of us have said things like, I really have appreciated that I'm better connected to my neighbors, right? But that can get lost in like the 40 demands of a full travel schedule this fall, right? So how right now might be God inviting us to cling to the God vision, even in the midst of good opportunities and good things? How is distraction today maybe playing a role in the things that are going on in your life and your story, right? And then when that doesn't work, it's actually exposed as a trap, right? Because when that doesn't work, Nehemiah says, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to meet. We're going to finish the wall. They actually go on the offensive, full-scale propaganda campaign, disinformation, trying to discredit it. You can look at the letter in verses 5 through 8. There's a scroll that begins to circulate around Nehemiah's time that's intended to make this guy who's been a bastion of integrity, kind of a picture of the rebuild, to do 2 things. Number 1, to make Persia, his bosses, go, whoa, we got to end this. This guy is corrupt. And to make the people who have been contributing to this rebuild get so disillusioned that they just quit, right? And I think about this on 2 levels. How has disinformation and the reality of disinformation led to discouragement or disillusionment in you? Some of us are navigating a moment in our professions, right? Teachers, social workers, medical professionals, anyone, where public health people, anyone, where the disinformation that's swirling has led to such a spirit of discouragement in us, right? We've had to lift and pivot for 18 months, and we're trying to give sound advice, and this guy's got an algorithm over here where he saw something on the internet which equates to good research. Or we realize that maybe it's just not as simple as like getting back to normal. And so for some of us, discouragement is very real and present in our story. For others of us, disillusionment, right? Because we have been in a place where, in Nehemiah's day, right? They read the letter, and here's Nehemiah. Here's another corrupt one. Here's another messed up one. He's not for us. And it's easier to buy into the gossip and buy into the disinformation than to really engage and pursue truth. And I think how some of us are probably in a place of disillusionment or cynicism. And what I would offer to you is that discouragement and disillusionment are ingredients right now that are dangerous and combustible ways in which the vision that God is trying to stir in you can be corrupted. And that rebuild that maybe God has for relationships or what it means to be on mission right now can be derailed. In verse 9, Nehemiah does spend some time quelling the disinformation, but then he also prays this very simple prayer, Lord, strengthen my hands. That's in verse 10. And what I love about that simple prayer is that it is not an invitation to pretend that disinformation and gossip about you doesn't hurt. It's a commitment to say, God, as I'm carrying the reality of this here and the reality of this here, help me still be about the work that you have called me to be about. And I know I need that right now in this moment. And then lastly, when that doesn't work, when that doesn't make everyone head for the hills, it doesn't bring the Persian army in to pillage the wall, they just go straight up fear-mongering. So Sanballat and Tobiah, these nemesis of Nehemiah, hire someone who looks the part of holy and really preys on the religiosity of Jerusalem, and has this guy Shemaiah go to Nehemiah and say, hey, guess what? This rebuild, they're going to come kill you. Come take refuge in the temple. It's on me. It's A, a violation of Levitical law, and B, it's a really bad look to say, hey, the leader's going to hole up in the temple while everyone else goes and faces the big scary Persians. And so Nehemiah, again, has to confront the reality of fear being present in his story. And he kind of says as much. And yet there's this play through, this ability to detect that this is a lie, that this is a trap, and that what Nehemiah is ultimately called to do is pass on and press forward. The reality for some of us, in our doom scrolling, for example, we might be looking at an excuse, right? An excuse to be paralyzed with fear and not do anything, or an excuse to go, well, I can just go back to an old life and an old way and ignore what God is asking me to do right now. There's a great article that was written by a guy named Charlie Wessel who said, what I saw in myself and my scrolling and fishing for information was really a need for a community of people that I could be connected to and sort out uncertainty with. That choosing faith over fear is not acknowledging the presence of fearful and scary things, but that choosing faith over fear is committing ourselves to the way of God in a community of people that help us navigate the uncertainty of our moment well. And so today, again, what we don't want to say when we're coming to this moment and saying, hey, where is fear present in our story? Well, let's just say, stop it. Are you scared of anything today? Stop it. That always worked when your mom or dad said it to you, right? Just knock it off. And finding out it is not a good love language thing. But what we're going to get invited to do in this moment, and this is what Nehemiah was, to get below the surface, to dig deeper than the surface level thing, and to look at what God is still doing even in the middle of uncertainty. And so today, as we move to say, hey, we've celebrated some things God has done over the course of these 18 months, but we believe that God is still working and moving, and God wants to use your story to be part of a greater story of rebuild and restoration and relationships around you, in workplaces, in the city, beyond the city, to the nations and the globe. What are the things that might creep in and derail us in this next season? So I want to invite us to consider these three questions by creating a little bit of space this morning. So let me say them again. Where have good things distracted you from a greater vision? As you think about this fall, as you think about the plethora of things on your plate, where are good things maybe going to distract from a greater vision? Number two, where have you allowed false information or discouragement to consume you or disillusion you? And then lastly, where is fear present in your story? I want to invite Katie to come, and she's going to lead us through a time where we're going to try to navigate these particular questions well. Because again, I think that the list and the demands and the get-tos, the things we got to get to today, probably would derail us kind of going below the surface on those questions. And so ask Katie just to kind of lead us through a time where we can reflect on these things a little bit greater. I'll ask them again. Where have good things distracted you from a greater vision? Where have you allowed false information or discouragement to consume you or disillusion you? And where do you find fear present in your story? Let's pray together. God, would you meet us in this moment? God, we're living in between, seeing something come to fruition and seeing the present tensions of this moment. God, we know that this isn't just a matter of asking you to make it all go away, but we ask today for the capacity to carry it well through your Son, Jesus, in whose name we pray. Amen.